Close your eyes. Breathe in, slowly, through your nose. Can you smell it? The faint musk of aged tatami mats, the whisper of iron from a freshly polished katana, and somewhere beneath it all, the ghost of last night's sake lingering in the wooden beams. Welcome, or welcome back to Chronicles of You. Tonight, you're not just hearing history, you're living it. You're a mid-ranking samurai in 1743 Edo, where the line between duty and drowsiness is perilously thin. The morning sun slants through paper screens, painting the floorboards gold, and your superior's voice drones on about border patrol rotations like a lullaby for the overarmed. But here's the secret they don't teach in dojos. Napping is your most vital skill. Miss the subtle art of the strategic doze, and you might as well hand your sword to the nearest tea merchant. Historians still argue whether Tokugawa Yoshimune's legendary nap tactics won battles or just justified his army's collective sleep debt. But the evidence is everywhere, from coded pillow scrolls to castle logs that list inaudible snoring as a promotion requirement. If you're enjoying this journey through time, let the algorithm know. Tap that like button. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to wander further into history's hidden corners. Where in the world are you resting tonight? Drop a comment with your city and local time. Are we drifting through dusk in Kyoto? Or is midnight wrapping around you like a weighted blanket in Montreal? Now, let the room grow dark around you. Adjust your pillows, sink a little deeper, and let the past rise up to meet you, not as a spectator, but as the main character. The story begins now. The castle corridors breathe around you in a rhythm of creaking wood and distant chimes. Your gaiter sandals whisper against the floorboards as you move through shafts of sunlight thick with floating dust motes, each particle catching the light like a tiny suspended memory. This is where history lives, not in textbooks, but in the way your hakama trousers swish with every step, in the metallic tang of sword oil clinging to your fingertips. A door slides open unexpectedly, revealing a scene straight out of a ukiyo-e print. Rows of samurai kneeling in perfect formation, their heads dipping like reeds in a slow river. At the front, an elderly sensei demonstrates the Kansho no Kamae, bell meditation pose, back straight as a temple column, hands resting palms up on thighs, eyelids at precisely 3/4 mast. The goal, his voice rumbles like distant thunder, is to appear deeply contemplative while achieving REM sleep. Historians still debate whether this posture was truly effective or just an elaborate excuse for napping during monsoon season. But the castle's punishment logs tell their own story. One junior retainer was famously fined for excessive drool staining official correspondence, while another received a promotion after dreaming the solution to a land dispute. Your training begins with the willow branch technique, tilting your chin just enough to catch the breeze from the garden while maintaining perfect posture. It's harder than it looks. The first time you attempt it, your forehead meets the floor with a resonant thunk that sends sparrows scattering from the courtyard. The sensei sighs. We'll start you on beginner pillows tomorrow. A peculiar truth emerges as you practice. Edo Castle runs on an intricate siesta economy. The best napping spots, the sun-warmed alcove near the kitchen, the slightly creaky floorboard by the third pillar, are traded like currency among retainers. One particularly enterprising page has even started a black market in nap vouchers, redeemable for prime dozing real estate during peak hours. As the afternoon light fades to gold, you catch your reflection in a polished helmet. Your face already looks different, the set of your jaw softer, your eyes carrying the weight of centuries. Somewhere beyond these walls, the modern world ticks on. But here, now, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Suspended between wakefulness and dreaming, between history and the present moment. The scent of sandalwood and something distinctly feline greets you as you enter the dimly lit archive. Before you, a mountain of scrolls teeters precariously, each tied with colored silk cords, indicating their level of secrecy. The purple one in your hands bears a single character. Mung, dream. Ah, murmurs the archivist, a wisp of a man whose eyebrows have grown so long they tuck behind his ears. The pillow scrolls. You'll want the 1689 edition. The margins contain doodles of sleeping cats by the shogun's nephew. His fingernail, yellowed like old parchment, taps a particular section. Here. The floating cloud position was banned after 3 retainers woke up believing they were butterflies. As you unroll the delicate paper, the ink seems to shift under your gaze. One moment depicting precise anatomical diagrams, the next dissolving into whimsical sketches of samurai napping in increasingly improbable locations. Inside giant temple bells, balanced on bamboo poles, even while ostensibly riding horses. Historians still argue whether these were training manuals or someone's idea of a joke. Your fingers trace a curious footnote about night soil collectors who could sleep standing up in moving carts when the archivist suddenly grabs your wrist. "Try this," he whispers, producing a dried leaf from his sleeve. "Ginkgo biloba. Chew it before watch duty. The 7th Shogun's personal recipe." The taste is like licking a battery wrapped in moss, but within minutes your senses sharpen. You can suddenly count every dust mote floating in the sunbeam by the window. A commotion erupts outside. 2 pages are engaged in what appears to be competitive napping. The first to snore loses. The archivist shakes his head. They're doing it wrong. True masters never make sound. To demonstrate, he folds himself into a perfect stone Buddha pose and promptly stops breathing altogether. You're about to call for help when he blinks awake with a serene smile. The secret is in the toes. Keep them slightly curled, like a cat's paw, when it dreams of hunting. As evening bells echo through the castle, you realize something peculiar. The scroll in your hands has changed. The illustrations now show a figure that looks suspiciously like you, napping contentedly atop a pile of history books. The caption reads, "When the student is ready, the pillow appears." The scent of burning pine resin mixes with the metallic tang of armor polish as you enter the castle's most forbidden space, the Nemuri no Ma, Chamber of Sleep. Moonlight filters through bamboo blinds, striping the floor like a tiger's pelt. At the room's center, suspended from the ceiling, hangs an ornate lacquered cage containing the shogunate's most prized secret, the Yume no Kanzashi, dream hairpin. Legend says it contains a single strand of hair from the dream weaver herself, whispers your guide, a nervous-looking page who keeps glancing over his shoulder. Stab it into your pillow, and you'll dream the future. Or possibly just have really vivid nightmares about misplacing your sandals. Historians still argue whether this artifact was ever actually used, or if it's merely an elaborate metaphor for sleep deprivation-induced hallucinations. But the castle's pillow tax records show annual shipments of silk floss and nightingale feathers to this very chamber. suggesting someone took it seriously. Your trial begins with the silent scream position, lying perfectly still while a trained Namuriko, sleeper, whispers increasingly absurd phrases in your ear. The carp wears your mother's obi. The goal: to reach REM sleep without reacting. You fail spectacularly when they mention free mochi in the armory, your stomach betraying you with an audible growl. Suddenly, the hairpin in its cage begins to vibrate with a sound like distant wind chimes. The page pales. That only happens when a door slams open, revealing the Shogun's sleep advisor draped in what appears to be a blanket woven from spider silk. "Ah," she says, eyeing you like a particularly interesting insect. "You're the one dreaming backwards." Before you can process this, she presses a cold jade disc to your forehead. The room tilts. You're simultaneously here in the chamber, watching your own eyelids flutter in a 16th century tea house, arguing with a badger about pickle taxes. Back in your barracks, where your roommate is drawing mustaches on your face with charcoal. The advisor nods approvingly as you struggle to reconcile these realities. Good. Most vomit their first time. She hands you a tiny bell. Ring this if you wake up in the wrong century. The castle's night kitchen exhales clouds of steam that curl around your face like sleepy ghosts. You're here on a mission to steal a single manju sweet from the Shogun's private stash, not for hunger, but as initiation into the Namuri-to, sleep thieves, a secret society of retainers who acquire items mid-nap. Your instructor, a wiry woman with rice flour dusting her sleeves like snow, demonstrates the technique. "Note the guard's rhythm," she whispers as a sentry's head dips for the third time in 2 minutes. Every snore has its counter-move. She glides forward, her gaiter sandals making less sound than a spider knitting slippers, and plucks a daifuku right from under his nodding chin. The trick is to move with their dreams. Historians still argue whether these food heists actually occurred or were just excuses for missing inventory. But the evidence is deliciously convincing. Kitchen logs show repeated orders for unaccounted sweet bean paste, and one particularly poetic ledger entry describes moon-viewing mochi that grew legs and walked into loyal retainers' mouths. Your first attempt goes poorly. You misjudge the guard's dream cycle and end up nose to nose with him as he murmurs about giant dancing radishes. Just as his eyes flutter open, you freeze in the Kansho zoom, bell cricket, pose, a last-ditch technique involving holding your breath while slowly crossing your eyes. Miraculously, he nods off again, and you retreat with nothing but a single sesame seed clinging to your sleeve. "Tomorrow we'll practice dream diversion," your instructor says, handing you a suspiciously warm manju from her own stash. "Also, stop breathing so loudly. You sound like a boiling tea kettle." As dawn stains the kitchen windows pink, you realize something peculiar. The sesame seed on your sleeve has sprouted into a tiny plant. Whether this is magic, sleep deprivation, or just really fresh garnish, you can't say. But when you crush it between your fingers, it smells exactly like the Shogun's favorite pillow. The armory smells of linseed oil and the faint iron tang of blood long since scrubbed from blade edges. You stand motionless as the Katsushi, armorer, circles you, adjusting straps with the precision of a surgeon and the bedside manner of a disgruntled badger. The chest plate sits wrong, he grunts, thumping your sternum hard enough to leave a bruise. You're holding your breath like a pearl diver expecting attack. This is your first lesson in Yoroi Nemuri, the art of sleeping in full battle regalia. The practice seems impossible until the armorer produces an illustrated scroll showing the legendary general Takeda Shingen napping upright in his armor during the siege of Nagashino. Slept through 2 cavalry charges, he says proudly. Woke just in time to order lunch. Historians still debate whether armored napping was battlefield pragmatism or samurai propaganda. The evidence leans toward truth. Period diaries describe specialized helmet pillows with head-shaped indentations, and one preserved armor set shows peculiar wear patterns on the shoulder guards consistent with frequent reclining. Your training begins with the Kabuto Makura helmet pillow technique, balancing your headpiece on a wooden stand designed to distribute its crushing weight. It works surprisingly well until you attempt to turn and nearly decapitate yourself on your own sewed shoulder guards. Amateur mistake, the armorer sighs, producing a bamboo flute. This plays the armor lullaby, 3 notes that loosen rivets just enough for comfort. As the melody floats through the armory, an extraordinary thing happens. Your cuirass seems to sigh, the metal plates settling like a neston bird. The armorer nods. Every suit remembers its first nap. He leans closer, whispering, "The real secret. Straw stuffed in the greaves, absorbs sweat, and makes a snack if besieged." You leave with aching shoulders and a newfound respect for warriors who could doze mid-battle. That night, back in the barracks, you dream in weight, the heavy comfort of steel wrapped around you like a second skin, your breathing synced to the creaks of 1,000 sleeping armors in the castle storerooms below. The pillow workshop smells like a forest after rain. Fresh-cut cedar, dried lavender, and the sweet musk of rice hulls steaming in their dye baths. The Makura Shi, pillow mistress, greets you by pressing a sachet to your nose. "Mugwort and silvervine," she says as your vision briefly doubles. Guaranteed to make cats and shinobi reveal their secrets. You're here to commission your first proper Baku Makura, dream-eating pillow, but the choices overwhelm. A Shogun Kiri model stuffed with mulberry bark shavings allegedly prevents snoring. A Uraizutsu cylindrical pillow that forces proper spinal alignment and makes you look like a rolled-up tatami mat. The infamous Neko no Te, cat's paw. Its surface studded with tiny acupuncture nubs. "Try this," the mistress says, handing you an unassuming rectangle that feels suspiciously warm. The moment your cheek touches it, you're assaulted by the scent of salt air and plum blossoms, someone else's memory woven into the fabric. "Ah," she snatches it back. "That's Akechi Mitsuhide's rebellion pillow. Gives everyone nightmares about burning temples." Historians still argue whether these specialized pillows held real power or just benefited from placebo effect. But the workshop's ledger tells its own story. One daimyo ordered 12 identical pillows after his wife accidentally stabbed his favorite in a fit of jealousy. Your fitting takes an unexpected turn when the mistress produces a nukabukuro, sack of rice bran, and orders you to sleep on it for neutral baseline readings. You wake an hour later to find her sketching your drool pattern with disturbing precision. "Fascinating," she murmurs. "Your saliva forms the exact shape of Hokkaido." As evening bells ring, your custom pillow emerges, stuffed with a blend of buckwheat hulls, chrysanthemum petals, and something mysteriously labeled Shogun's Reserve. The mistress ties it with a black silk cord. "Dream well," she says. "Or don't. Some of history's best ideas came from terrible sleep." The abandoned bell tower sways slightly in the autumn wind, its wooden beams creaking like an old man's knees. At its peak, the legendary Ronin, known only as Nemuri no Bo, Sleepstick, lounges against the railing, using his namesake staff to toast mochi over a brazier the size of a teacup. "You're late," he says, flicking a burnt rice cake into the void below. "I've napped through 3 seasons waiting." This is your first lesson in Ronin Nemuri, the art of sleeping when you've got nowhere safe to lay your head. The master demonstrates by balancing on the tower's narrow guardrail, his straw hat tilted to block the sun. The secret, his voice drifts up from what should be certain death, is to always keep one toe touching the ground, metaphorically speaking. Historians still argue whether wandering samurai truly developed specialized sleep techniques, or if these were just excuses found in drunkards' diaries. The evidence is compelling. Period scrolls show detailed diagrams of wayfarers' postures, and one particularly desperate manual suggests napping inside hollow trees if pursued by tax collectors. Your training begins with the Furin-zumi, wind chime position, suspended in a rope harness that looks suspiciously like stolen temple bell rigging. Just as you achieve something resembling rest, a gust nearly sends you penduluming into the tower wall. "Good," the Ronin calls from his perch. "Now try it blindfolded. Most attacks come at night." By dawn, you've mastered exactly one skill: sleeping while mildly concussed. The Ronin gifts you a traveling pillow that turns out to be just a rock wrapped in faded brocade. "Used this at Sekigahara," he says proudly. "Woke up with a bullet hole through my hat, but perfect spinal alignment." As you descend the ladder, he calls down, "Remember, when in doubt, snore confidently. Even bandits respect a good fake death." The Shogun's private tea room smells of aged timber and the faintest whisper of pickled plum, his signature tension reliever. You kneel on a mat that costs more than your annual stipend, trying not to sweat through your formal kimono. The man himself reclines on a raised dais, observing you through half-lidded eyes. "Demonstrate," he commands. "This tatami no kage, shadow of the mat, technique, my spy's report. This is it, the ultimate test." You ease into the position, weight shifted slightly left to avoid creaking floorboards, right hand resting lightly on your thigh, close enough to your sword to show awareness, but not so close to seem paranoid. The trick, you've learned, is in the breathing. Sync it to the castle's natural rhythms, the distant clatter of kitchen staff, the periodic calls of the night watch. Historians still debate whether the Tokugawa shoguns truly mastered meditative sleep or simply perfected the art of keeping perfectly still while awake. The evidence tilts towards sleep. One physician's journal mentions prescribing dream herbs for Iyasu's insomnia, and castle logs show suspicious gaps in meeting schedules coinciding with peak napping hours. Just as you reach that perfect threshold between awareness and dreaming, a servant drops a tray outside the door. Your eyes flash open, but the shogun is smiling. "Well done," he murmurs. "You didn't reach for your sword." From his sleeve, he produces a small sandalwood box. "My personal blend. One pinch under your tongue before watch duty." The substance inside looks suspiciously like powdered caterpillar fungus. You bow deeply, already imagining the ribbing you'll take from barracks mates. But as you exit, the chamberlain whispers, "That's the real thing. They say a single dose lets you nap through an earthquake." That night, you place the box carefully beneath your pillow. Whether it's magic or placebo hardly matters. The weight of history itself seems to press down on your eyelids, gentle as a silk kimono laid across a sleeping form. The dream begins with the scent of burning sandalwood and something darker, charred honey perhaps, or the last embers of a rebellion. You stand in a moonlit courtyard where the gravel shifts underfoot with a sound like whispering teeth. Before you, 7 masked figures sit in a semicircle, their postures ranging from meditative to frankly comatose. "Welcome to the Yum Kaigi," says the central figure, their voice echoing strangely, as if coming from inside your own skull. Tonight's agenda: debating whether reality is just a collective nap gone wrong. This is no ordinary dream. You've stumbled into the Namuri Ryodan, Sleep Guild, secret meeting space, a liminal realm where Edo's most accomplished nappers convene to share techniques beyond mortal comprehension. The air thrums with impossible knowledge: how to sleep while falling, how to dream in perfect iambic pentameter, how to nap so deeply you briefly cease existing. Historians still argue whether these shared dreaming sessions were real or elaborate metaphors for sleep deprivation. The Guild's own records, written in disappearing ink on mothwing parchment, suggest both. Entries describe collective lullabies that put entire villages to sleep, and one particularly bizarre incident involving a daimyo who allegedly napped his way into next Tuesday. Your initiation begins with the Baku no Shisha, Dream Eater's messenger, pose, lying perfectly still while guild members take turns whispering increasingly absurd phrases in your ear. The persimmon tree is plotting against the well. Your left sandal remembers being a sea turtle. The Shogun's favorite pillow is actually 3 foxes in a trench coat. Just as you feel your sanity unraveling, the central figure presses a jade disc to your forehead. Reality folds like origami. You're simultaneously here in the dream courtyard, watching your own sleeping form twitch back in the castle armory, where your helmet is quietly judging your life choices, somewhere in 19th century Paris, inexplicably arguing about mayonnaise with a mime. The guildmaster nods approvingly. You'll do. They hand you a tiny silver bell. Ring this if you wake up in the wrong timeline. The training dojo smells of pine resin and the distinctive funk of 30 unwashed men trying very hard not to fart in formation. Your instructor, a sinewy woman with more knives than teeth, demonstrates the shinobi namuri, ninja sleep, by collapsing face first into the tatami and immediately beginning to snore. "Observe," says her assistant, poking her with the bamboo pole. No flinch reflex. Breathing pattern matches natural floorboard creaks. This is how you nap in enemy territory. Your mission: infiltrate a mock enemy camp by pretending to be a sleepwalking servant. The catch? You must actually fall asleep mid-performance to sell the illusion. The instructor demonstrates the falling leaf technique, slumping so artfully that 3 students rush forward before realizing it's not a medical emergency. "The body doesn't lie," she says from the floor. "Fake snores sound like a sick goat. Real ones sound like a mountain settling." Historians still debate whether ninja sleep techniques were practical or pure folklore. The evidence is delightfully ambiguous. One scroll describes agents who could sleep for 7 days without blinking, probably just very patient spies, while castle records mention a ninja who got stuck in a fake snore so convincing his own team forgot he was acting. Your first attempt goes spectacularly wrong. You misjudge the enemy guard's dream cycle and end up spooning him as he murmurs about giant radishes. Just as his eyes flutter open, you deploy the Kanshozume, bell cricket, freezing with one eye half open, breath held, limbs arranged in plausible collapse. Miraculously, he pats your head and tucks a rice ball into your sleeve before resuming his patrol. Tomorrow we practice dream infiltration, the instructor says, handing you a suspiciously lumpy pillow. Also, work on your drool control. You left enough to drown a mouse. As you leave, you notice something odd. The rice ball in your sleeve has sprouted tiny legs and is trying to crawl away. Whether this is magic, sleep deprivation, or just really fresh ingredients, you can't say, but when you bite into it, the taste is unmistakably future. The punishment scroll arrives tied with black silk and smelling faintly of vinegar, never a good sign. You've been caught napping during the Shogun's poetry recital. In your defense, his ode to a particularly symmetrical radish contained multitudes. Now you stand in the hall of mild but pointless humiliation, where the walls display implements of psychological warfare, an oversized paper fan labeled for excessive drooling during official functions, a set of wooden clogs filled with dried peas, for those who sleepwalk into forbidden areas, the dreaded Neko Jirushi, cat marker, a giant papier-mâché feline headpiece designating you as official castle slacker. The Chamberlain unfurls your sentence with relish. For the crime of unconsciousness during cultural enrichment, you are hereby sentenced to Okitataki, the awakening walk. This involves being paraded through the castle grounds wearing the cat head, while attendants rhythmically tap your shoulders with reed sticks. It's not painful, just deeply undignified, especially when the kitchen staff starts lobbing dried sardines at you. Historians still argue whether these punishments actually reformed behavior or just provided afternoon entertainment. The castle's punishment logs suggest both. One entry describes a retainer who received the cat marker so often he started napping better, while another notes a page who fled to a monastery after being caught sleep-filing his taxes. Your walk of shame takes an unexpected turn when the head gardener slips you a note. Check the third willow by the moon viewing platform. There, carved into the bark, you find the shame-induced side sleeper diagram, a position allowing one to doze while appearing to bow deeply in contemplation. The accompanying poem reads, "Even the cat naps with one eye open for tax inspectors." By sundown, you've become an unlikely folk hero. The laundress gifts you a stealth drool cloth disguised as a neckerchief, while the stable master demonstrates how to sleep standing up like a horse. Just lock your knees and think of your debts. As you finally collapse onto your futon, the Chamberlain's voice echoes down the hall. Tomorrow, earthquake drills at dawn. Try to remain conscious through at least half of them. The monastery's meditation hall smells of centuries' worth of burnt incense and unresolved spiritual tension. Brother Honen, a Zen master so relaxed he occasionally forgets to breathe, demonstrates the Zazen Nemuri, meditation sleep, by reciting koans in his sleep. If a tree falls in the forest with no one to hear it, does it get to sleep in? The dreamer dreams of being dreamed, but who washes the dishes? Your training begins with counting breaths until numbers lose all meaning. Just as you achieve the coveted tofu state, soft but holding shape, a novice clangs a bell directly in your ear. Congratulations, Brother Honen murmurs without opening his eyes. you've just achieved beginner's irritation. Historians still debate whether Zen monks truly attained enlightenment through controlled sleep, or just got really good at faking awareness. The monastery's own records are suspicious. Margin doodles show increasingly elaborate napping positions, and one 16th century diary complains about Brother Josho's audible enlightenment. Your breakthrough comes during the 3 a.m. chanting session. Between the monotone sutras and the warmth of the kotatsu table, you slip into a trance so deep you briefly become convinced you're a 17th century teapot. Brother Honen wakes you by tapping your forehead with a keisaku stick, but gently, like testing a melon for ripeness. Good, he says. Now you understand nothing and everything simultaneously. He gifts you a meditation belt with secretly padded elbows before returning to his own nap, leaving you to ponder the greatest koan of all. If a monk snores in an empty zendo, does he still owe the temple rent? Moonlight pools in the castle corridors like spilled mercury as you stalk the most dangerous prey of all, the shogun's stolen pillow. Rumors say it's stuffed with nightingale feathers and strands of a celestial maiden's hair, though the kitchen maids whisper it's actually filled with the dreams of defeated enemies. Your investigation leads to a tea house that smells suspiciously of chamomile and rebellion. Beneath a go board with suspiciously pillow-shaped indentations, you find a hidden door. Inside, the Nerimono-ya, Sleep Merchants Guild, holds court amidst piles of contraband bedding. The guild leader, a woman with sleep lines still creasing her cheek, doesn't deny the theft. We took it to prove a point, she says, handing you tea that tastes like liquid hammock. Even the shogun can't resist proper sleep hygiene. Behind her, the legendary pillow rests on a cushion of imperial purple silk, looking oddly at home. Historians still argue whether this was political theatre or performance art. The guild's confiscated records contained plans for Operation Pillow Fort, replacing all ceremonial swords with decorative cushions, and a frankly alarming recipe for sedative mochi. As dawn approaches, you face a choice: return the pillow and crush the movement, or you slip a guild membership scroll into your sleeve just as guards burst in. The shogun will get his treasure back, but the revolution, it seems, has only just begun to yawn. The castle library at midnight smells of wisdom gone slightly musty, aged paper, drying ink, and the cedar oil used to polish knowledge into submission. Before you, Brother Honen and your spy instructor kneel beside an ironwood chest marked for official napping only. Inside rests the Nemuri Mokoroku, the secret catalogue of sanctioned sleeps. Every technique you've learned, the monk whispers, is but a single character in an endless scroll. With great ceremony, they reveal the ultimate secret, Yugen Nemuri, the sleep of profound mystery. Not a method, but a state where time becomes as pliable as fresh mochi. Those who master it, reportedly, wake to find impossible tasks completed, laundry folded, swords polished, bad poetry rewritten, hold conversations they don't remember having, occasionally phase through walls by accident. Your training begins with drinking tea made from moon-viewing mushrooms, which may or may not be hallucinogenic, while listening to a poem about a snail's existential crisis. Just as reality starts to soften at the edges, Brother Honen places a cherry blossom on your forehead. When you can nap through your own enlightenment, he murmurs, you'll finally understand. Historians will never agree on whether Yugen Nemuri was real. But as you drift into what might be sleep, meditation, or something else entirely, you notice the library's clock has stopped. Dust motes hang motionless in a sunbeam that shouldn't exist at this hour. And the last thing you hear, or dream you hear, is Brother Honen's voice, impossibly, coming from inside your mind. Ah, there you are. The scent of cherry blossoms and distant rain lingers as we return from our journey through Edo's dreaming hours. Your limbs feel pleasantly heavy, like a well-worn kimono settling into familiar folds. The castle's nocturnal whispers fade, the creak of floorboards, the rustle of guards exchanging shifts, the soft snoring of history itself. Perhaps you'll remember fragments tomorrow, the weight of an armored nap, the taste of dream tea, the ridiculous thrill of balancing in that bell tower. Or perhaps these memories will dissolve like morning mist, leaving only the vague sense of having been somewhere extraordinary. That's the magic of Yugen Nemuri. It lives in the space between recollection and imagination, between history and the stories we tell to soften its edges. Whether samurai truly nap their way through meetings or simply wish they could, does it matter? For these few hours, you walk their polished floors, breathe their incense-thick air. You were there. As the last embers of our tale glow softly in the dark, let your breathing sync with the imagined rhythm of Edo Castle at rest. The distant hush of the night watch, the occasional owl's cry, the eternal whisper of straw matting under unseen feet. Wherever you are in the world, whatever hour your clock shows, know that history's quietest moments are always waiting to welcome you back. Sweet dreams.